Hi guys, back again with yet another chapter in your SBL journey, which is concepts of strategy and environmental issues. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm sick and tired of hearing the word strategy because it's thrown around so casually, and people who talk about it, I think they barely know anything about it. It sounds complex, it sounds as if, people are trying to maybe find a cure for cancer. But is it that difficult? I don't think so. Because strategy is basically answering just two simple questions, right? Where do we want to go and how will we get there? So every business, whether it's Tata or Infosys or a local cafe or Satyamed Nandedkar, is making a choice about its direction. It's not a document per se, it's a mindset. It's not just a concept. It's about knowing where to go, how are you going to reach there, and making consistent decisions that move you towards a long term goal. What we are doing right now is we'll be unpacking the foundations of strategy, what it means, why it matters, and how great companies in India and around the world apply strategic thinking. We'll be exploring tools like SWOT, PESTEL, Porter's models with examples that will resonate more with you. Now, there are some management theorists across the world who have created their own definitions, and who, of course, these definitions in a way resonate. Now, let's start with what Johnson, Scholl, and Whittington said. They said strategy is the long term direction of the organization. This definition emphasizes the temporal aspect of strategy. By temporal, I mean time driven aspect of strategy, but it lacks detail about the formulation process. I mean, it focuses on the word direction. I mean, think of Infosys, founded in 1981 by Mr. Narayan Murthy and six engineers working, I don't know how many hours a week. Their long term direction was clear: to make Infosys a global IT consulting leader. Over 40 years, they have stayed on that path, expanding to 50 plus countries, adapting to technology waves, but never losing direction. Alfred Chandler, the determination of long-term, long-run goals and objectives of an enterprise, and the adoption of courses of action and allocation of resources necessary for carrying out these goals. It assumes a rational, planned approach to strategy development. Now, this definition, it brings across an important word called resources. Reliance, take that as an example. It decided 2 days ago that energy and telecom would be its growth pillars. Every rupee they invested, from Jamnagar refineries to Geo 4G, 5G rollout, was resource allocation driven by long term strategic goals. And finally, we have Henry Mintzberg, who says strategy is a pattern in a stream of decisions. It recognizes that strategy may develop incrementally rather than through deliberate planning. He meant that not all strategies are carefully planned, some evolve over time. I mean, a great example in today's day is Zomato. It began as a restaurant listing site, but as customer behavior evolved, they adapted to food delivery. This wasn't pre written, it emerged through decisions over time. So, what are we saying? That strategy can be deliberate, planned top down, or it can be emergent, shaped by your experiences in the real world. Now, strategy as a tool for organizational change. How does that part work? Let's understand. Because this is what is going to, define your actions in the long run. Now, when I talk of strategy, it is really about how an organization changes over time, right? Strategy is how you adapt to situations and pave the way forward. There are two main pathways for that change. There is deliberate change, where everything is planned in advance. Like TCS deliberately planned to transition from software services to digital transformation and AI consulting, which was not a part of its portfolio earlier. Or incremental or emergent change, where the direction evolves through many small day to day decisions. Example, HDFC Bank's move into fintech, it wasn't overnight. It was built through small steps like UPI integration, then Pays app, digital loans. Real strategy usually blends both. If you only plan and never adapt, you become rigid. If you only react and never plan, you lose direction. The best firms like Tata Group, they have long-term strategic visions, but they evolve with the environment, and that is the reason why they have survived and thrived for over 150 years. Correct. Now, what characterizes good strategic decisions, or what basically makes strategic decisions work? And let's talk about that and what makes a decision strategic. It's like playing around with words, it might sound to you, but think about it. There are four key traits. First is long-term direction. They shape where the company is headed. For example, Hindustan Unilever's pivot towards premium products like Dove and Lakme wasn't a one-year tactic. It was a 10-year strategic move to lift profit margins. Then talk competitive advantage. Strategy is about being different, not just being good, and it has to be sustainable. Maruti Suzuki built its dominance on cost leadership, reliable cars at affordable prices. In contrast, Mahindra differentiated through rugged SUVs. Both have clear, distinct advantages. They have their own target customers also. Organizational scope, it defines what the company will and won't do. For example, TCS focuses on IT services and digital transformation. They don't try to build hardware like Lenovo or Apple. They are very clear in terms of what they want to do. And it has to be the right environmental fit. The strategies must align with external realities, regulations, consumer trends, technology. I mean, ITC, Indian Tobacco Company, has diversified from cigarettes to FMCG and paper because of rising health awareness and taxation, creating an environmental shift. I'm not sure how many of you know ITC for tobacco, but I'm sure all of you know ITC for their hotels, for their notebooks, for their snacks. So basically, broad, long-term perspective that impact the entire organization. Now, why do you think making strategic decisions is so complex? Because there is a huge element of uncertainty involved. Let's break that down. Cross functional impact. A strategic decision affects marketing, finance, operations, HR all at once. For example, Air India's transformation under Tata Group isn't just about branding, it's about redesigning processes, restructuring finances, and rebuilding culture. There is a major organizational change that is coming in. These decisions often mean re engineering everything, new systems, new structures, new leadership, like a completely, it's not old wine in a new bottle, it's a complete overhaul, so to say. And then stakeholder influence, shareholders, employees, and even regulators who get affected in the process. When Z and Sony announced their merger, shareholders expected synergy while employees were worried about overlap. So, strategic decisions are never simple. They require coordination, vision, and resilience. Resilience is an ability to bounce back, when things don't work for you and you are pushed down. The strategic model basically involves three aspects, which is why we call it the three-part model. Johnson, Scholes, and Whittington, they created a powerful way to think about strategy in three stages. Strategic analysis, where are we now? Strategic choice, where do we want to go? Strategic implementation, how will we get there? See, they're circular. It's very difficult to say what came first and what came later. They all have to work in tandem with each other and it has to constantly evolve. Now, I could cite Infosys as a classic example. Okay, they realized that digital transformation was the next frontier. What did they decide to do? They decided to invest heavily in AI, automation, analytics. That was a conscious choice. And then when it came to implementation, they acquired smaller tech firms, retrained their own staff, redesigned services, which means good strategies are not something, which are frozen in time, which are blocked in time. They are ever evolving, right? It cannot remain static in any way. To understand strategic analysis in depth, you have to understand that there are four blocks. Understanding the external environment, tools like PESTEL analysis, Porter's five forces, they will help you identify external opportunities and threats. Example, the Indian EV sector, that is the electronic vehicle sector. There are incentives coming from the government of India and in terms of how the EV sector should evolve. And but there is still a battery dependency on imports. So we don't know exactly where the sector is headed, but understanding the environment will help us realize that okay, this is the direction it is taking. Now, if you are an investor, you wouldn't decide to invest in a company that makes electric vehicles only because of a government policy initiative, right? You will have to analyze the entire environment, not just one aspect. Then internal environment, assessing what the company is good at and where it's weak. For example, HDFC Bank has a strong IT system. I mean, as a user of HDFC Bank app myself, I know how it delivers all the expectations and more. Then, knowing your strategic purpose, knowing why do you exist and where do you see yourself. Like Tata Group's vision, improving the quality of life of communities, it drives long-term sustainability projects. And of course, a cultural analysis, because culture can either drive or derail strategy. Wipro's ethical culture has helped the company to win trust with global clients, something purely that financial analysis cannot measure that. But does it define what Wipro is as a company? Of course it does. And that will shape the actions that it is going to take in the future. Now, one of the most important tools that, even we people use in our daily lives to give ourselves a direction is the SWOT analysis, right? SWOT analysis is strength, weakness, opportunity, threat. It combines internal and external insights. When I say internal insights, strength and weakness are internal to me, because they are part of me, whereas opportunities and threats are external to the organization. SWOT analysis helps combine the two. I mean, let's take Ola Electric as an example. Whenever you open the Ola app, the first thing that pops is, before they allow you to do ride booking, they have this pop up which asks you to book, do you want to book the Ola electric vehicle? Now, the strength of the brand is that, or the strength of the model is that there is a good brand recall, uh, ecosystem integration, because there are so many of us who use Ola as a ride hailing app. We are trying to book taxis every day, which means there is automatically a connect with the ultimate consumer. But there are certain weaknesses in the sense that there are quality issues with the vehicles, and there is a limitation on the after sales service. It's not really evolved. The opportunities are in abundance, because there is electronic vehicles, or electric vehicles, sorry, not electronic. There is electric vehicles pushed by the government of India in the form of incentives and all of that. And there is rising urban adoption. People are suddenly becoming more and more aware. The threat is that there is competition from Ather, Hero, and Tesla's foray into this particular domain. The point of SWOT is not just listing points, it's creating connections. How can Ola use its strength to seize opportunities? How can it overcome weaknesses to defend itself against the threats? That is the essence of strategic thinking. And if you know how to deal with these elements, there is a possibility that you will overcome some of these issues, and that will help you scale better success stories than what you could have imagined. Now, SWOT analysis is just one part of it. There are strategic choice overviews that, it's in what kind of a strategy do you need to look at before we go into, the other implementation aspects of it. To see, the word strategy doesn't indicate that these are decisions taken only at the top management level. These, of course, they work throughout the organization, not just at the top. And it's an ever evolving thing with multiple layers in the organization working towards it. Now, strategy primarily works at three levels. The corporate level, these are decisions taken by the top management, where you decide about which business units to hold, what to acquire, what to sell off from a broad company level perspective. Top management makes these decisions. And for example, Tata Group right now, it covers steel, software, cars, hotels. Tomorrow, if it wants to enter some other space, and that decision will have to be taken at the top management level, that is corporate level strategy. If I were to talk of business level strategy, how do we compete in that industry? You have decided to enter the For example, you have decided to enter the car segment. How do we make sure that, see, the decision to enter car segment is a corporate level strategy. Now, how do we compete in that industry is a business level or a mid level strategy in that sense. Like, Maruti Suzuki, for example, it has a low cost advantage, or Mercedes Benz, it wins by differentiation. What can you do to compete and to win? And then, of course, the functional level strategy. which helps you to decide what exactly are the steps that you need to do on a regular daily basis in order to make sure that the long term success is delivered to you. So there are three levels primarily that we are looking at: corporate level, business level, and functional level. So implementation methods is basically functional level strategy. Now, once you know what are the three strategy levels, you should be aligned with how the implementation idea should work, right? Having formulating a plan is great, but how do you implement that? How do you ensure that it is successful? Strategic implementation transforms chosen strategies into actions through systematic execution processes. This phase involves evaluating options, establishing appropriate corporate structures, and implementing methodologies for successful strategy deployment. The first thing is, see, you need to know that strategies fail in execution. They are mostly good on paper. And implementation requires three ingredients, which are these: structural alignment, the organization structure, who reports to whom, where all are you spread, your geographical location, that should support the strategy. Like when Reliance Jio launched, it reorganized into digital and telecom verticals for speed and focus, because that will be required. Otherwise, there will be quite a bit of a hodgepodge there and you won't be able to deliver. A process redesign is required. Outdated systems can block execution, so systems have to be either redesigned or completely remodeled. HUL's Project Shakti, it redesigned its supply chain to reach rural markets directly. Now, that meant getting rid of middlemen, getting rid of your older distribution channels, and that had to be done. Otherwise, the project would have failed. And change management is basically, see, you know that the team is going to resist change. Human beings, as a lot, end up resisting change always. So the leadership should know how to manage it. Like when Air India joined Tata, cultural integration became a bigger challenge than financial restructuring. And see, a plan is only as good as its execution. Without effective execution, I think it's going to backfire on you. Now, one of the bigger tools of understanding how a business should operate in terms of in terms of analyzing the environment is a tool called PESTEL analysis. The word PESTEL is an acronym. P stands for political, E stands for economic, S for social, T for technological, E for environmental, and L for legal. So let's deep dive into, see, all of these factors will affect where you as an entity stand and how these decisions affect you in the long run. Let's talk about political factors. See, any political decisions made at the central government level or state government level do affect you. Like think about government change. When BJP led NDA government came at the center for the third time, I'm not saying that everybody was in favor of BJP or the industries loved BJP. They didn't, or maybe they did, but they wanted stability. So the stock markets, instead of nosediving, they were expected to remain stable, because having political stability also helps industries survive and thrive and grow. Now, a shift of power can, like, think about it. When the Tata Group, it wanted to set up the nano manufacturing plant in West Bengal, Singur, Mamata Banerjee, driven by political motivation, staged a dharna, staged a protest and whatnot, where quickly the project was lifted out of there and it was shifted to Gujarat. Now, West Bengal as a state lost out on a huge opportunity, in my opinion. Why did the, and see, but think about it from the Tata Group perspective. They had already made investments, the plant was ready to roll, and in the middle of that, they had to shift it. Imagine the amount of loss they would have suffered and the delay in production that happened. So, political factors have a very significant role on the business. Economic factors impact all industries: GDP growth, business cycles. Imagine if the interest rates in the economy are high, the immediate outcome is that less and less people would be interested in taking loans. If less people are interested in taking loans because of high exchange rates, the outcome is that less and less people want to take loans. That means, say, sale of iPhones will drop because the rate is now 36% instead of 24%. The sale of washing machines will drop. The sale of educational courses will drop. So it affects everyone for that matter. Taxation policies do play an important role here. The consumer and investor confidence levels are impacted by what the government policy and stance is on a particular aspect. And in today's day and age, I think you would be remiss in your duties as a professional if you don't take the socio-cultural factors and technological factors into your discussion. I mean, social trends and cultural attitudes significantly impact business strategy. I mean, a very silly example, but something I'm sure all of you have seen play out in the last 3 months. There was this extremely stupid looking doll called some Labubu doll or something. And social media trends made everyone believe that this is the next thing that they want, and that item was sold for some 4 5 thousand, and the company which manufactured it, it is laughing its way to the bank. Now people who capitalized on that trend quickly were able to make money. Now, Gen Z right now is looking at, they have a work-life balance expectation. So companies now have to evolve their strategies to suit the new workforce that is coming to them, which is Gen Z. The awareness levels are high, the information levels are high. So if a product is fraudulent, they will not waste time in calling out that particular commodity or calling out that particular company. And I think technological factors have never been more important than what they are right now. What do I mean by that? See, today we live in the age of AI. There is a new way to doing things every single month, every single quarter. Like right now, if I were to tell you, I mean, the work that I am doing, if I have to make a slide or if I have to make, a lecture plan, I think I have an AI tool that can help me with it, which means I might not need so many humans working with me. So that will impact my hiring decisions. Remote working capabilities are there, so you can sit in a particular part of the country and work from there without having the need to be physically present. And all of that is reshaping the way we look at businesses and we look at execution also. And then, of course, the environmental and legal considerations. So, sustainability concerns increasingly influence business strategy. Today, there are people who have turned vegan. So, you might find it when I was traveling in internationally, I noticed that there are so many restaurants that now offer vegan options. They had to change in response to the demands of the customers. Or customers today are demanding cruelty-free products. Or there is, I mean, the chief minister of Delhi in one of her interviews was questioned on the waste management in the city. And you have so many firms and companies which are into waste management, right? And that's become a business in itself. There is more awareness. So all of these factors, they are shaping the way decisions are getting made. Thinking about stuff from a legal perspective, I think legal frameworks establish operational boundaries through company law and health and safety regulations and competition act and all of that. There are GDPR or data protection regulations also. What cannot be uh, implemented through thought or through thought leadership is often implemented by making it mandatory through a legal provision. Or the Environmental Protection Act is a great example. Or the companies being mandated to spend a proportion of their earnings on CSR is something that the company law has made it mandatory. Then health and safety regulations, they will have a major impact on how hospitals are functioning and at what price they can offer certain services to the patients. Data protection requirements have become stringent, which means companies now need to have a separate department which focuses just on that. So all of these factors do play an important role. And when it comes to understanding the key drivers of global change, PESTEL analysis has primarily identified that when you're talking about globalization, that is reaching a larger set of customers globally, then market globalization in that context means, see, Indian customers now expect global quality. That is why, brands like IKEA, Apple adapt locally while keeping global standards. So does MACD. I mean, India is not a place where pork and beef might be consumed in the same proportion as abroad. So they have vegetarian options here. I was in some other country and they did not have vegetarian options. So adaptation is important. Then communication, digital media lets Indian brands like Nika and Boat reach global audiences. I mean, boat is as Indian as it can get, but now through the right communication channels, you are creating that connection. Then cost globalization. India's low cost advantage drives IT exports. By the way, with what Trump has done right now, putting certain trade barriers there, the industry has suffered a bit of a disadvantage. Trade liberalization, FTAs with with the UAE and Australia, free trade agreements with these countries, they open new markets. And then of course global competition, Tesla, Amazon and others, they are redefining these standards. So today the idea is think global but act Indian. And you should know what makes a strategy work, right? It's not about perfection, it's about direction, it's about adaptation. The best strategies are simple, clear, laid out in as minimum words as possible. Success stories like Infosys, Reliance, and Tata, they prove one thing, that isn't a plan. It's not a one-time plan, okay? It's a process which keeps on evolving, continuously deciding and adjusting to the circumstances around you. Remember, it's clarity plus flexibility plus execution, which is the very foundation stone for strategic success and strategic thinking.